This week, we saw a 9-year-old girl slam her school board after they put up Black Lives Matters posters in contravention of their policy. Have a look at this kid.
When I was here 2 weeks ago, you told us to report any BLM in our schools. Apparently, you know they're in our schools because you made the signs. I said there should be no BLM in schools, period. It does not matter the color you make the posters and the font you use. We all understand the meaning. It is a political message about getting rid of police officers, rioting, burning buildings down while King Governor Welch just sits on his throne and watches. We all know. Changing the font or the color of posters does not change the meaning. I am 9 years old and I know that. You expect me to believe that you did not know what you were doing by making these posters? Come on, people.
Come on, people. Daisy, I was watching that and just thinking, I imagine that might have been what you were like as a young girl. Did that give you any flashbacks to young activism, you know, sticking it to the left, sticking it to the wokies at school?
Oh, my goodness, James, I'm actually pleased you said that because, to be honest, when I first watched this fabulous little girl, I was actually reminded of myself when I was about 9 years old, sticking it to various people that I had decided had done the wrong thing. I love this kid. I think she's fabulous. She's precocious. She's correct, aside from anything else. She is what the feminists would call an example of female empowerment. Of course, she will not get any credit for it from feminists, and if she continues in this political vein, which I sincerely hope she does, she will be a target of the so-called female empowerment campaign. She's direct, she's clear, and what I absolutely love the most about her is the fact she is all decked out in a nice, trendy American flag singlet. So good for this little girl. I hope she keeps fighting the good fight, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future when I see kids like that.
Who knows, maybe she could wind up being, well, I wouldn't want to insult her by saying this, but she could wind up being the Greta Thunberg of the anti-woke movement. But again, I wouldn't want to put her in the same camp with
James,
Greta.
don't do it to her.
No, that's too mean. But maybe in a few years,
God.
who knows, we may wind up having her here on Outsiders, coming to us from the States. Now, Caleb, we were talking about China earlier. We're going to be talking a lot more about China a little bit later on in the show, but another story out of academia, the Biden administration may very well be ignoring Chinese influence on college campuses. This has been a big problem in China, I know, and we're not sure that the Biden administration is up to the task. Caleb, what do you reckon?
No, and it's the same problems that we've faced here in Australia, where, China uses its money as it does in all sorts of places, like, things like Belton Road, and they continue to go around offering money to Pacific nations to buy them off. They do exactly the same thing in universities all over the world, which is they set up these Confucius institutes and all this kind of thing. They get the university on side. They say, we're sending all these students to you and they're spending a lot of money with you, so you owe us this and we deserve that, etc., etc. And they use these Confucius institutes and all of their sort of sister outfits to spread Chinese propaganda. You won't hear a word about what the Chinese are doing to the Uyghurs. You won't hear a word about what happened in that lab in Wuhan. It's all covered up. China is a wonderland. There's no communism, no people living in poverty, no people starving, no Xi Jinping telling you how to think, no state media. It all gets covered up. And it would seem that Biden's administration is turning a blind eye to it. We finally have woken up to this in Australia, and we finally have an education minister who is standing up against this and many other things that have been happening on campus, the suppression of free speech, trying to stop people having a dissenting view, as though that was something that happened in universities as a matter of course. No. We're finally waking up here, and I am so concerned that if the US does not also wake up, and it would seem Biden has no desire to do so, and in fact he's probably quite happy to let these things roll on, you infect the minds of students and they then go on to be the leaders of the next generation. Is it any wonder that we have to deal with the kind of lefty nonsense that we do now when this is what we allow to go unchecked through our universities.
Well, exactly right. And I reckon that when it comes to China, guys, I think that the Biden administration is about as blind as Hunter on a Saturday night. But you talked about language and what's happening in the universities. Well, news out of Brandeis University that they have issued new Orwellian language guidelines where they're saying that you can't say policeman because that's affected. That's offensive. You can't say police person or policeman or police officer because that's bad. You can't say homeless. You have to say temporarily affected by not having a place to sleep, something like that. You can't even use phrases like killing it, like saying, Daisy, you're really killing it on the show today. Daisy, where are we going with all this Orwellianism?
Look, I thought maybe 3 years ago that we'd actually reached the peak. I thought, we can't get any worse than this. But then, of course, it did get worse, and we ended up with something called chest feeding, for instance, instead of breastfeeding, so that we don't offend non-binary people or trans men who can't breastfeed. But the thing about breastfeeding, of course, is that actually covers the chest as well. You have a breast of chicken, a breastplate, you rest your head on somebody's breast. So those pushing this idea of, say, chest feeding and browbeating anyone who refuses demonstrate sheer ignorance of the English language, might I now say. But now we've got to the point where saying that someone is homeless is offensive, and you have to put this sort of jargon of words afterwards so as to not to hurt the feelings of homeless people. Well, I'm sorry. I don't think there's anything offensive about saying that someone is homeless as if they don't have a home. I mean, that's just sort of seems to be accurate, in my opinion. And second of all, I think homeless people have much bigger things to worry about than what non-homeless people term them as.
Well, wouldn't it be great to see them maybe opening a soup kitchen rather than rewriting the dictionary?